Osio nigot galele jageto kohig Wade Blevins dawadon he atalaki na kine RSU TV chikananu ko ka kohig skohine talaki at lo coste. So welcome. I'm very glad to be here today. My name is Wade Blevins, and this is Cherokee 4 here on RSU TV. Today is our 10th Cherokee lesson. And so we're working with classifying verbs, right? In the last lesson, we started working through a piece of writing on things you should have in case of an emergency, right? The things you should have if there's an emergency, right? So today, what we're going to do is we're going to work more with that have verb, right? And we're going to maybe finish that piece of writing today, I'm hoping. And if not, then we'll just carry it on to the next class, right? So come, idalena talagi de one. Okay, again, as always, let's get our reading practice in and a little bit of review and just to get our brains working and our brains back in that mode. So this is the song that we used to do, right? Doxy agi kado ustajaka, right? Remember the song, okay? But we're going to do it as a reading exercise rather than a song. You can sing it if you like. There's nothing wrong with that. But really what I want to know is whether you know which words to put in. So I'll give you a few seconds to read through it. I'll read through it with you. And then you tell me what words go in those blanks, okay? Okay, let's read through it together. It says, Ahani squatlesti kana sula idina gala. Squatlesti agiha do usti taha. Okay, squatlesti agiha do usti taha. Kana sula idina galai. Right? And then if you were to sing it, squatlesti agiha do usti jaha. Squatlesti agiha do usti jaha. Squatlesti agiha do usti jaha. Kana solidina galai. Right? So squatlest, of course, is a ball. Agiha, I have it. Do usti jaha, what do you have? So, okay, agiha daha. Give you a few seconds to read through it. We'll read it, then we'll read it together. Okay. Idigolia. He a unadi kana sula idina gala. Unadi agine do usti jahne kana sula idina galai. Okay. Here unadi kana sul idina gala. Unadi agine do usti jahne. Okay. So did you get agine and jahne? So ni stayed agino kana sul idina gala. Stayed agina da usti jana. Stayed agina da usti jana. kanasul itina gala. Okay, agina, jana. Jantis just gesa hia. Hia gosternist kanasul itina gala. Gosternist aquia da ustitia. Gosternist aquia da ustitia. Kanasul idina gala. Gosternist aquia da ustitia. Aquia tia. Daxi agika kanasula idina gala. Daxi agika do ustita ka kanasula idina galai. Okay. Agika ta ka. All right. So we're going to go through our reading from yesterday. Hopefully, you found it very, very beneficial. I know I have, because not only are we getting practice with our have verb, right? Our classifying verb to have, but we're also learning some great new vocabulary, and we're also getting practice with that future tense, right? Which is translated by as should. You should do something, right? So let's read through this together slowly, and then a little bit quicker. So, go husti nuk te no hun yi nulstan hi a judalena jul sked de jaha skesti. Okay, go hust nuk te no hun. Okay, nuk te no hun. Yinulstan. If something unexpected happens, hia judalente. These different julsked important things, these various important things, dejahaskesti, you should have them. Akayi first, tlesti ayogi, alstaiti, food that doesn't go bad. Dejahest, you should have. So you should have food that doesn't go bad. Tlesti ayogi, alstaiti dejahest. Okay, you should have food that doesn't go bad. Ukayoti ale galitana alstaiti ostagesest. Dried or canned or preserved, alstaiti, food, ost, good, gesesti, will be. So it'll be good if it's dried or canned food. You can, this word, galitana, you can also put talugis galitana. I've seen it that way as well. And it just means canned or preserved, okay? Talugisk is a can, okay? So ukayote, dried, ale galitana, or preserved or put up. Alstaiti, ostagesest is good. Nole, jane haste. Osta adi tossed usked. Okay. Then, water, jane haste, you should have. You should have water. Osta adi tossed, or osta jadi tossed usked. It's important. Water that's good to drink is important. Sku gagustote jahest. You should have gagustote. You should have a water filter. Sku as well. Sku gagustote jahest. You should have a water filter. And we talked about gagustote. Can not only be a filter, it can also be a sieve, right? Or a sifter. Gagustote. Okay. Usti osi jahest. Okay. Usti, small. Osi, stove, jahest, you should have. So you should have a small stove. Usti osi jahest. You should have a small stove. Galoque jayest ale gatni sku. So a gun you should have, and also bullets. Okay? And remember we talked galoque jayest ale gatni sku de jayest. You could say that as well, you know, depending on the shape of the bullet. So, galoque jayest ale gatni sku. Okay, so a gun you should have. Ale gatni sku, also bullets. Okay, hayest jayest. Hayest jayest. Okay, you should have a knife. And again, a knife, long and rigid, so you use jaya, right? So, and if I were going to say hayest jayest, that means you should have a knife. But if I say hayest jaya, that means you have a knife, okay? Not you should have, you do have, right? Hayest jaya, you have a knife, okay? So let's go back through just as an exercise, and let's replace you should have with you do have, okay? So in this one, here, judelena da juskeda de you have these different important things, okay? This one is you should have food that, or instead of saying you should have food that doesn't go bad, you should say you have food that doesn't go bad, right? Plesti ayogi austaiti de okay? Instead of de haste, right? Okay? You have water. Jane. Jane instead of jane haste. Jane haste. You have a water filter. Gusto tichaha. Gusto tichaha. Okay, you should have a water filter. Am ge gusto dicha est. Okay, you have a little stove. Okay, usti osti chaha. Usti osti chaha is you have a little stove. You should have a little stove. Usti osti jahest. Okay. This one says you should have a gun. Now let's change it to say you do have a gun. Galo kwe ya. Galo kwe ya. You should have a gun. Galo kwe jest. You do have a gun. Galo kwe ya. Okay. You have a knife. Hayesti ya. You should have a knife. Hayesti jest. Bandages, okay? So this, between last class and this class, I went back through and this this is to tie up, okay? This is something used to tie up, okay? So nest. Okay, so that you should have bandages. Nest. Nest. So how do you say you have bandages? Right? Okay, you should have important copies of important papers. Helas de tlilos tana de gohuel jusked de janest. Helas de tlilos tana de gohuel jusked de janest. Okay. Now, again, let's change this to you do have copies of important papers. Not you should have, but you do. Hilanski ditlilos tana de goel jusked de jana. Okay, so de janest becomes de jana. Okay, so here's one. Okay, so I'll let you read it. Igad Adela de squan go dest. Okay, de squan go dest. Okay, igad some Adela money. De squan go dest. You should save. Okay. In my original, whenever I was going through this, I was like, well, you should have some extra money. But to a speaker, they wouldn't say it like that. They would be like, well, you know, to have some money, you need to save some money. So, you know, so that they felt like this was a better translation. So, ikata adela desquan go dest. You should save some money, right? Ikata adela desquan go dest. And again, this est should. Ah, okay. Okay. So this says unique ka ta unique ta judelenada different kinds de haste okay unique seeds unique seeds judelenada different kinds of seeds de haste you should have. Okay, so how would you change this sentence from saying you should have different kinds of seeds to you do have different kinds of seeds? You have different kinds of seeds. Unique taju delena da de zaha. Right, de zaha. You should have de zahest. You do have de zaha. And of course, we're using the verb for to have something of indefinite shape, right? Because seeds aren't liquid, they're not alive, they're not flexible, they're not long and rigid, right? So we use zaha, de zaha. Okay. So, hilusk die just deze jest. Okay. Hilusk, several. Die just, lights. Die just is literally lights, okay? But in this case, and that can be, you know, overhead lights, it could be matches, it could be flashlights. In this case, we know it's probably talking about a flashlight because deze jest, this deze is to have something long and rigid, right? So it's a light that's long and rigid, which of course would either be a flashlight or maybe a lightsaber, I don't know. But I mean, I suppose you could use it for a lightsaber, right? But, you know, most people don't have lightsabers in their home, although some do, but typically it would probably be a flashlight, right? So, hilusk die just, deze jest, you should have several flashlights. You should have several flashlights. Okay, so how would we change this from you should have several flashlights to you do have several flashlights? Hilusk die just deze, right? Deze. Okay. So I'll give you a few seconds to read through this. And see if you can figure out from the words and from the picture what it is you should have in this case. Okay, let's read it so we can see. Di no ju ganawa de janest. Okay. Di no clothing. Ju ganawa warm. De janest. Okay. You should have warm clothing. Di no ju ga nawa de janest. You should have warm clothing. So how would we change you should have warm clothing to you have warm clothing? Of course, di nawa ju ga nawa doesn't change. De jana or de jana, de jan, de jana. Di nawa ju ga nawa de jana. You should have warm clothing. Di nawa ju ga nawa de janest. Okay. This one is interesting. Go ahead and read through it. It's only 2 words. Okay. So this says gawoniski jahest. Okay. Of course, jahest you should have. Gawoniski. A talker. Gawoni. Talk. Ski means something that does that, right? Gawoniski. Gawoniski. A talker. That's a radio. Okay? That's the word for radio. Of course, you should have a 2-way radio or a ham radio, something that you can send and receive messages. And originally, this sentence was talking about that, but it got really confusing. So I was like, well, we'll just say you should have a radio. So gawoniski is a radio. Gawoniski, because of course the radio talks. It's a talker, right? Jahest. So that's you should have a radio. How about you do have a radio? How would you change you should have a radio to you do have a radio? Gawoniski jaha. Because of course a radio is of indefinite shape. So gawoniski jaha. Gawoniski jaha. Okay. Give you a few seconds to read this one. Okay. Okay. So I think this word here is incorrect, but we'll fix it. Okay? So this says galjotana or galjotani. Galjotani. Galjotan. You may know the word galjode. Galjode is a house, right? Galjotan would be a tent. Galjotan. Uhjördli. Jahalugiski. Uhjördli, cold. Jahalugiski is to divert, okay? Diverter. So a tent that diverts the cold, okay? Galjota uhjördli jahalugiski. So a tent that diverts the cold. John Nest. John Nest. This shouldn't be John Nahest, because we talked about that. John Nahest, John Nest. Eventually it becomes John Nest, but I didn't get that change made. So John Nest, because of course a tent is flexible, right? It's floppy. So gal jo tan uherdly jahalu giski. Jahalu giski. So this uherdly jahalu giski is one way you could say insulated, right? Because it diverts the cold, right? And I've also, depending on how it's what it's an insulator for, this Jahalu Giiski, if you look in the Cherokee dictionary, it has Anagaliski Jahalu Giisk, which is like an insulator on a electric line. You know, those glass insulators, right? And so what it does is it diverts electricity, right? It diverts the electricity, or it diverts lightning, really, is what it says. But, and then an insulator like for for computer, in the Microsoft terms and stuff in the Cherokee dictionary, it says uditleg jahalugisk, so it diverts the heat, right? Of course, we don't really want it to divert the heat for a tent. We want it to divert the cold, right? Galjo tan uherdli jahalugisk, janest. Okay, so how would you change this for you should have an insulated tent to you do have an insulated tent? How would you change that? Give you a few seconds, or maybe several seconds to figure that out. Okay. Gal jo ta u herdli jahalu gisk ja na, John na, right? John na, John nest, John na. John nest, you should have something flexible. John na, you do have something flexible. Okay, so let's try okay, so let's see if you can read that. Ju ne gaha, de John nest. Okay, ju ne gaha, de John nest. You should have blankets, right? Ju ne gaha, blankets, de John nest. You should have them. Ju ne gaha, de John nest. And again, as always, how would you change you should have blankets to you do have blankets? You have blankets. Ju ne gaha, de jana. Ju ne gaha, de jana. Ju ne gaha, de jana. Okay. I'll give you a few minutes or a few seconds to read this one. Okay. Hilask Diganaliski. Diganaliski. Deje jest. Deje jest. So you should have, and we can tell already that whatever it is we have, hopefully you can figure out this deje jest means we're talking about something long and rigid. Deje jest, you should have, hilinski, diganaliski, batteries, okay? So anagaliski is like lightning, electricity. So diganaliski, so is the word for batteries. Hilinsk, several. Hilinsk diganaliski. Deje jest. So how would you change this for you should have several batteries to you do have several batteries? Hilinsk diganaliski. Deje. Okay. Hilinsk diganaliski. Deje. Okay, this one. So we'll read through it and then we'll talk about this a little bit. So, ajotast, jahest. You should have jahest. You should have ajotast. A whistle. Ajotast is a whistle. Okay. In my mind, whenever I was first trying to translate this sentence, in my mind, I had in my head our old whistles, which were made out of pieces of river cane, or my grandpa used to make them out of slippery elm. He would take the bark off of it. He would like slip it off and then notch it somehow and then put it back on and it would make a whistle. I don't know how he did it. It was amazing. But I never could do it. And so when I first did the sentence, I translated, I said, ajotast jest, because it's long and rigid. However, whenever I started going through and trying to find a picture to go with it, all I could find was this kind of whistle, which to me would be jahest, because it's not particularly long, right? So ajotast jahest. But if it's like a longer whistle, and even like a rape whistle, right? If you've seen like a dog whistle or something like that, you know, they're long and skinny. So depending on the shape of the whistle that you have, you would change the verb. Ajotast jest or ajotast jahest, depending on the size, the shape of the whistle, right? So how would you change if we're using jahest? If we're using this whistle here, how would you say changed you should have a whistle to you have a whistle? Ajotas jaha. Ajotas jaha. Okay. Ajotas jaha. Okay. Give you a few minutes to read through this one, or a few seconds. Shouldn't take us minutes to do it. It should take seconds to do. Okay. Okay, this says ga qua de sto ti. Ga qua de sto ti. That's a wrench. It's to turn something with. Ale tigania do ti. Something to grab on with, something to grab with. Okay, and that's pliers. So, gakwa de estote is a wrench. It's something used to turn. And then ale, tikaniya dote, pliers, something to grab with. Tikaniya dote. So we can see how this dote is used, something used for a specific purpose, and gakwade stote, something used to turn with, ale, tikaniya tote, something used to grab something. Okay, and then deje jest, you should have something long, because of course a wrench and a pair of pliers are long and rigid, right? So gakwade stote ale tikaniya dote deje jest. You should have a wrench and pliers. Okay, gakwade stote ale tikaniya dote deje jest. Okay. So how would you change this sentence from you should have a wrench and pliers to you have a wrench and pliers? Okay. Gakwade stote ale tikaniya dote deje ya. Right? Okay. Let's do this one. Hitikolia talugiski astu isto te jest. Okay, so probably from the picture, hopefully you've figured out that we're talking about a can opener. Okay, talugisk, a can. Astuistote, used to open. Astuist is open. And then dote, something used for that purpose. Astuistote, something used to open cans. Jest, you should have it. So you should have a can opener. Talugiski astuistote jest. Okay. So talugiski, can, astuistote, used to open, jest, and we're using jest because it's something long and rigid. So how would we change you should have a can opener to you have a can opener? Okay. Talugiski astuistote ya. Okay, next one. Okay. Okay, let's read through that. It says, Usti yitaka. Usti alstaiti deja hest. Okay. So usti yitaka. Okay. If you have a baby, yi cha ka. The yi makes it if. Cha ka, you have something alive. So if you have a baby, usti alstaiti. Baby food, usti alstaiti. Baby food, deja hest. You should have. Okay, so you should have baby food if you have a baby. Okay, so then how would you change you have a baby, usti cha ka, right? And then you have baby food, usti alstaiti deja ha. Okay, this one. Squu igada juna se lodi. Igada juna se lodi. Deja nest. Deja nest. Okay, I think there should be a there. That looks better. Okay. Squu also igada some juna se lodi. Diapers. Those are diapers. Juna se lodi. There's another word for diapers that they use back east, and I can't think of it, but if I remember it, I'll tell you. Juna se lodi deja nest. You should have diapers. You should have extra diapers. Okay? Sku ikarata juna se lodi deja nest. Okay? And then how would you change that to you have diapers. You have extra diapers. Okay? Ikata juna se lodi deja na. Deja na. Right? Okay? And this one. Last one. Okay? This says Digo huele deja nesti. Digo huele deja nesti. You should have notebooks. Digo huele deja nesti. You should have notebooks. Scu digo huelode deja jest. Also, digo huelod, something to write with, pencil. Deja jest, you should have. Okay? Deja jest, you should have pencils. Okay? Digo huel deja nest. Of course, you should have something flexible. However, you have to change it for talking about a pencil because a pencil is long and thin, right? And solid. Scu digo huelo deja jest. You should have pencils. Okay? All right. So that does bring us to the end of our reading. That also brings us to the end of our lesson. So hopefully you found this valuable and helpful and helped you internalize how these verbs work, okay? So we will come back to it at some point and look at it again. But for now, I just want to say wadon, and for all of us here at Cherokee Nation and RSU TV, don dago ha'e jadak sos test.